Good morning, good morning, good morning. We finally made it. It's Friday, the 20th of June, all day. You join me and Mr. Michael Brown for the morning blast, where, as usual, we will give you a review of yesterday, a preview of today, add a bit of value, put a smile on your face, etc., etc. But before we do, I'll get the legals out of the way. So, as usual, nothing discussed in this basic session constitutes trading or investment advice, or infers any kind of endorsement by PIQ, myself, Ryan Paisley, or indeed Mr. Michael Brown. How are you, my friend?
I'm very well, thank you, Ryan. Very well indeed. Good morning to you. Good morning, everyone, and a very happy Friday as well.
Yes, indeed, indeed. We've finally made it. Um, should I just get a couple of the Iranian headlines out the way, as seems to be the way we're doing it at the moment?
I was going to say, yeah, why don't you do that? And I'll just pop myself on mute because there seems to be rather a lot of background noise. Someone rather annoyingly has decided to reverse a lorry down the road just as I joined the
Oh,
call.
how dare they? How
I
dare
know,
they? So
inconsiderate.
exactly that. So just a few Iranian headlines overnight. As we said before, it seems to be the way we're doing it at the moment, because mainly it just sets the scene for pretty much everything else we're talking about. As usual, all put together by the awesome Zach and the Overnight News Roundup. Do subscribe to that on our Substack. Do follow Zach on Twitter, etc. So in Iranian news, or Iran news, sorry, Trump admin officials are pitching the president's 2-week timeline on whether to launch a tax as a chance to let diplomacy play out. According to ABC, Trump reposted a quote on Truth Social, said that Trump, brackets Trump, is the guy who killed Qasem Soleimani. That was a little while ago, if you remember, about 2-3 years ago, I think now.
Uh,
Although
that
I'm not really
was
sure.
that was 2020, wasn't it? It
Oh,
was
was it
just
that long
before
ago?
it was just before COVID because I remember that
Oh, right.
everyone was joking about World War Three and then we went into a pandemic.
Yeah, that was the one. Also, it wasn't him that killed him; it was the Israelis. So I'm not really sure where he's getting that from.
No,
Um,
he flew the plane.
was it? Okay. Or maybe he was inside the bomb. But anyway, he's suggesting that it was him that killed him. And therefore you think he's afraid to take out Forgo. Of course not. I believe he probably means Fordo, which is the the nuclear enrichment facility. But yeah, bit of a weird post from him. Brent crude could jump to around $90 a barrel, or sustain $90 a barrel if the Strait of Hormuz is closed. That's according to a Citigroup report. Though they do add that prolonged halt to shipping through that crucial waterway is still very unlikely, which seems to be kind of what everyone's thinking at the moment. And to be honest, in terms of real news and kind of developments, that's it at the moment. We have seen some reports that the E3, which I believe is UK, France, Germany, they're meeting with Iranian officials potentially today and over the weekend, on the nuclear front, on the nuclear talk front. Although Iran have stipulated that there is no chance of a ceasefire whilst hostilities happen, which seems a bit of an odd one, because you kind of ceasefire means a stop to um, hostilities. So if you're saying that you won't even do that until they've already happened, you're basically saying there won't be a ceasefire until there already is a ceasefire, which it's a strange one. But yeah, that's just what the Iranians are like. Unfortunately, we seem to get, depends on who you talk to, either heads of Revolutionary Guards or head of their government. You often get different kind of answers. So as it stands, still as it was, Israel still attacking Israel, and Iran still lobbing missiles over. But anyway, that's it on the Iranian front. What's been occurring yesterday, my friend?
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, and I'm not sure whether you mentioned this, Ron, was we did hear from the White House yesterday who was saying that Trump will make a decision on whether or not to strike Iran within 2 weeks.
Yeah,
So
that's what I led with.
Oh, did you? Oh, sorry, that must have
Yeah,
been while I was fiddling around with the mute button. There we
yeah.
go. The other thing I would mention, just while we're talking about geopolitics and defence, this is not the most important news this morning, but it was interesting yesterday, ahead of the NATO summit, Spain came
Oh
out and
yeah,
said
yeah, yeah.
that they are against the 5% of GDP spending target. They've asked for an exemption and said that that target should, and I quote here, be for those allies that need it, not us, which sounds very much like Spain turning around and going, everyone else can carry on paying for our defence, which I can't imagine will go down
Well,
particularly well with someone in the White House.
yeah, exactly. The thing is, well, because at the moment, obviously, it's a 2% target, and Spain have basically said, look, we're struggling to reach 2%. You've got no fucking hope of us paying 5%. And if we did, it would mean cutting social security, increasing taxing, which, domestically they're just not going to do. And I think it's very much an eye on Eastern Europe and the US, etc. When they kind of mentioned that. But yeah, good point to flag.
Yeah, indeed. Apart from that, though, let's move away from the geopolitical sphere because there is plenty else to discuss this morning. It is worth just bearing in mind that markets did absolutely nothing of any interest whatsoever yesterday. Of course, the US was out for Juneteenth. Even those markets that were open traded in pretty subdued fashion. Volumes were absolutely abysmal. We did see the S&P future take a bit of a leg lower, but just a bit of context around that. The front S&P future yesterday traded about 35,000 contracts. On an average day, we trade 1.2 million contracts. So anyone who is trying to read too much into the market moves that we saw yesterday, go and give your head a good old wobble. As for fundamental developments, we did have plenty of G10 policy decisions. As we covered on the blast yesterday, the Swiss National Bank, they delivered a 25 basis point rate cut, lowering rates to 0% and reiterating their willingness and preparedness to be active in the FX market as necessary. We also had a decision out of Norway with the Norges Bank surprising markets by delivering a 25 basis point rate cut, their first cut of the cycle, lowering the deposit rate to 4.25%. They further noted in their guidance that rates will be reduced further in the course of the year if the economy evolves in line with expectations, and they see rates just below 4% by the end of the year. So the potential for one, maybe even two further cuts from the Norges Bank before 2025 is over. That is, from a psychological perspective, an important decision because it is kind of the last bastion of hawkishness within the G10 central banking world falling by the wayside, unless you count the Bank of Japan, of course, but they are a little bit of a special case. We also had a decision from the Bank of England, of course, yesterday. The old lady of Threadneedle Street holding bank rates steady at
What was the
4.25%.
vote? What was the vote?
Well, I was just going to get into that.
All
Now,
right, go on.
the bank rate held steady at 4.25% in a split vote among MPC members. It must have been the most obvious call in the world that this was going to be a 6-3 decision, with,
Yeah, yeah, of course.
with, well, if you can get it right, with external members Dingra and Taylor dissenting in favour of a 25 basis point rate cut.
Just to confirm, expected wasn't 6-3. It was me that said I actually think it will be 6-3.
Yes,
Expected
and
was yeah. Go on.
consensus was 7-2. I thought it'd be 7-2. Ryan thought it'd be
Yeah,
6-3. Well done, Ryan. Bravo. Um,
yeah.
give yourself a pat on the back.
Oh, I have.
We
I've already given myself a gold star. Don't worry about that.
Those two external members were joined in their dissent by Deputy Governor Dave Ramsden. Some people are drawing parallels around what we've seen before with the BOE, where Ramsden joins the dissenters one meeting before they actually deliver a rate cut. I mean, fine, you can draw that conclusion if you want, but they're going to cut in August anyway, and they were going to do that whether Ramsden dissented yesterday or not. So I'm not sure that's overly significant. Nevertheless, the MPC retaining their prior guidance around the need for gradual and careful easing going forwards, and the policy needs to remain restrictive for sufficiently long to bear down on the risks of persistent price pressures within the UK economy, and they will continue to take a meeting by meeting and data dependent approach to future policy decisions. All pretty much in line with expectations, apart from that vote split, obviously. As I just said, August remains the most likely timing for the next 25 basis point cut from the BOE. And actually, while I'm talking about the UK economy, just worth bearing in mind the data that we've had out of the UK this morning. A pretty grim retail sales report, actually. Headline sales falling by a whopping 2.7% on a month-on-month basis in May. Much, much bigger fall than the 0.5% decline that participants have been expecting. Excluding fuel, sales fell by 2.8% on the month, also much worse than consensus. I would just caution, though, that we have had 4 straight months, or we had at the start of the year, 4 straight months of very, very solid retail sales growth. And I think a lot of that was purchases from, that would ordinarily be made in the spring being pulled forward into March and April. We had
Yeah.
a lot of good weather then. So it's not surprised that some of that is now being given back a little bit. We also had the latest borrowing data out of the UK this morning, which pointed to the budget deficit standing at £17.7 billion in the month of May. Yes, that's a little bit better than consensus. Yes, somehow it's better than what the OBR had forecast, but it is still the highest May the highest May deficit figure since the ONS started to collect their records, excluding the COVID period. So it is by no means something that we should be particularly happy about. As for other factors from yesterday, on the trade front, the Reuters citing sources noting that EU officials are becoming increasingly resigned to a 10% baseline rate on reciprocal tariffs in any future US-EU trade deal. I'm really sat here going, why the hell is it taking them more than 2 months
Well,
to work
yeah,
that one out?
I think that was
That was
kind of
pretty obvious
extremely
at the
clear.
start, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was kind of laid out that this will be the baseline.
Yeah.
This should have been what they were been working off from day one, but I think this kind of sums up the EU.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was talking about this with a journalist yesterday. Half the issue the EU have in these trade talks is that they're doing two negotiations because they've got to negotiate with 27 others to work out what
Yeah,
they
no,
want
exactly.
before they then go and negotiate with the US. So, yeah, not entirely sure what that lot are up to. Also, sticking with trade, Xinhua, who are, of course, the Chinese media outlet, they reported on a meeting between China's public security minister and the US ambassador to China yesterday. Part of the readout of this meeting was that China and the US have agreed to cooperate in drug control and illegal immigrants. Now, I can't imagine there's too many illegal immigrants going directly from Beijing to Washington, DC, but this is potentially of note given that the 20% tariff, ostensibly as a result of fentanyl supplying into the
Yes.
US, that remains in place. So if we do see moves from the Chinese side to sort of curb the supply of fentanyl into the States, maybe at some point that will unlock a bit of a softening of the stance around that particular trade levy. Sticking with Trump and US political developments, Trump signed an executive order yesterday to extend the TikTok deadline for 90 days. I've lost count of how many times this has been extended now. I believe that's the third extension, although I may be
At
wrong
least,
on
yeah.
that one. Very much becoming a theme here. And to be honest, I've put this out on Twitter yesterday. I wouldn't be at all surprised if the next headline we read of that ilk is Trump signs executive order extending the Liberation Day tariff pause for another 90 days. That does seem to be the direction of travel at
Do
this
you know what?
point.
I kind of thought, I thought that what you were going to say then was that you wouldn't be surprised if you hear the next thing you hear on this would be that somehow something related to Trump media is buying TikTok. But yeah, I think
Oh,
that's
well, that wouldn't
probably,
surprise me either, to be honest,
no,
these
do you know
days.
what I mean?
And they'll probably complete the purchase using Melania Bitcoin or whatever the bloody
Yeah,
thing's called.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
Buttons.
Yeah, absolutely. Also sticking with the United States, and one for Tom Talks Cars, who I assume is in a hungover mess in bed because he's not on the call. SoftBank, their founder, CEO, whatever he is, Masayoshi Son, he is pitching a $1 trillion investment in the United States. He wants to
Yeah.
build an AI hub in Arizona. This complex would apparently be in partnership with TSMC and be looking to manufacture various robots and artificial intelligence bits and bobs. Apparently, the complex that he's looking to build is being codenamed Project Crystal Land, which is a cracking name, but naturally
Interesting.
SoftBank are seeking various tax breaks and government incentives before they go along with that
And I
project. That
think
could be a bit of a
this
slow burner.
this kind of follows what is kind of, you know, an underlying theme that seems to be picking up some speed, which is, you know, domestic AI. It seems like a lot of countries and a lot of regions now are
Mm.
trying to, like, you know, build their own kind of bases up and their own hubs, like we're seeing it in the Middle East, which is obviously in APAC, and the US. And obviously, as we know with Trump, he wants everything onshore, apart from his own mobile phone that he's releasing, but, you know, which apparently is being made in China. But there you go.
I'm not surprised by that, but I hadn't actually realised that.
Yeah,
I
well,
thought it was
that
all
was,
meant to be made in the US.
well, apparently, but that was the story doing the rounds a couple of days ago, that apparently someone's looked into it, and actually this phone is all made in China. I think maybe
Oh.
assembled in the US, but it's all made in China.
Yeah, that one screw is put in the United States,
Yeah,
doesn't
right.
it? And last, but by no means least from me for the time being, there was news by the FT yesterday that X, which is of course the app we're using to communicate with you now, they are apparently set to be beginning at some point this year to offer investment and trading services. And the CEO of X is also apparently looking at launching a credit or debit card, which could come as soon as this year as well. So potentially one to watch there. Obviously, when Musk bought Twitter, 2 years ago now, I think it was. One of the things they were talking about, or that he was talking about potentially doing, was creating a sort of one-stop shop super app to do absolutely everything, whether it be, tweet or send messages or make payments, and it looks like he's continuing to make progress towards that aim. But for the time being, that is all from me.
What could possibly go wrong? You get to listen
Well,
to your
absolutely.
favourite Furu, and then you can just like lump in with some penny stocks or whatever. But yeah,
I would rather trust a very drunk Ryan Paisley with my credit card than Elon Musk.
and I'm not very trustworthy when I'm drunk.
or or sober, to be fair.
Well, at least I pay my rounds.
I've got a
Tom.
story. I've got a bit of a rant about that, actually.
Okay, well, let me get the headlines out of the way first. Um, so as well, thank you for that, Michael. As usual, so rattle off some significant headlines that we've taken from the overnight news roundup, which the awesome Zach Eisman puts together. Again, do follow him on Twitter. He's I can see him there now. Wave Zach, and also on Substack. Done the Iranian ones. We've got those out of the way first of all. So let's just do some trade. Canada's steel defence. Canada introduces policies to curb steel imports and may raise tariffs on US steel and aluminium, pending progress on new economic security deal. US-China package slump. This according to Bloomberg. US tariff hikes on small Chinese packages led to a 40% drop in shipments in May, with parcel values falling to just over $1 billion. On China's rare earth curbs, China's rare earth magnet exports halved in May to a 5-year low due to tightened export restrictions. That's according to Reuters. Sticking with Reuters and Bloomberg, Japan-US trade fog. Japan's trade negotiator says talks with the US remain unclear, with Japan prepared for a prolonged negotiation as reciprocal tariffs loom. In macro news, Trump regains Guard control. A federal appeals court allows President Trump to keep command of California National Guard amid LA protests, overturning a lower court ruling. That's according to Wall Street Journal. JP Morgan, their dollar bearish outlook. JPM maintain a bearish US dollar view, citing slow US growth and global policy support and reduced investor interest in US assets. That's via our friends at Forex Live. Japan's inflation surge. Wall Street Journal reporting that Japan's core consumer prices rose 3.7% in May. Obviously, that data came out this morning, the fastest since January 2023, outpacing forecasts and signaling persistent inflationary pressure. Reuters, sticking with BOJ, the BOJ rate hike debate. Bank of Japan minutes reveal consensus on raising rates, but caution due to US trade policy uncertainty. Moving to the UK, Bloomberg reporting on the, as Michael just alluded to, the UK retail plunge. That's where UK retail sales dropped sharply in May, raising concerns about a struggling economy in Q2. Geopolitics away from Iran. China-Taiwan escalation. Bloomberg reporting that China sent the most warplanes towards Taiwan since October, following US lawmaker visits and UK-Japan warships transiting through the Taiwan Strait. So kind of following the theme there, normally when we see a US senator or whatever pop over to Japan, or whenever we say UK, um, you know, Japan or US warships go through, we normally then find China fly load planes, so nothing really untoward there. Equity names, before I hand back to Michael. Obviously, it's quite a quiet day yesterday with the US being on holiday.
Oh, don't use
Um,
that word.
well,
You're going to start tempting fate now.
I said yesterday. I didn't say anything about today. Um, SoftBank, we've already covered. That's their, the giant $1 trillion bet in Arizona. Home Depot, their acquisition move. Home Depot offers to buy building products distributor GMS, potentially sparking a bidding war with Brad Jacobs. I assume that's a company name, not just a geezer called Brad.
No, it
Um,
is. It's a man.
is it just really a bloke called Brad?
I'm surprised you've not heard of it. Actually, for once, I'm being serious. He's a very famous chap. He's a multi-billionaire, and he's effectively built his career by going round and doing a whole host of M&A to basically bring together businesses within an industry. I think he's doing construction now.
Oh, well, there you go. I literally never heard of the geezer. Hello, Brad, if you're listening. Nvidia's AI server
Very funny
demand.
looking chap, actually.
Oh, I'll probably get along with him. Nvidia secures output at Wistron's new Taiwan AI server facility, with strong order growth expected for another year. Finally for me, Honda-Nissan collaboration. Honda considers a business tie-up with Nissan to counter US tariff challenges after their merger's talk collapsed. So a merger by any other name, by sounds of it, just maybe focused on just the US side of the business. That's going to Nikkei. And that's it from me. Back to you in the studio.
Good stuff. I was going to say, if anyone Googles Brad Jacobs, his hairline is a little bit like mine these days,
Right.
to give
Give
you
me
an
a
idea.
sec.
Right. Well, while you're doing that, let me run through what we have on the docket for the day ahead. It is.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
You see what I mean
Oh
now?
my God. Yeah, no, you know what? It's like looking in the future.
It's
It
quite
is Michael
worrying, isn't
Brown in
it?
the future. Yeah, love that. Right, I'm posting that up on Twitter. One sec. Right,
Oh
back.
dear.
Go on. You get back to whatever you're doing.
Yeah, I've completely lost my train of thought now. Where was I? The day ahead. Sorry, forgive me. In terms of this morning, the data docket is completely barren, but we do have a few notable releases as we move into the stateside session this afternoon. And of course, US desks return from the Juneteenth holiday today, although I wouldn't be at all surprised if a lot of participants just decide to have a 4-day weekend instead. In terms of those scheduled events at 1:30, we get the latest Canadian retail sales data. This data is for April, where sales are set to have risen by 0.4% on the month, compared to the 0.8% rise that we saw in the month of March. Although StatCan will also give us their flash read on May retail sales as well. Also at 1:30, we get the latest manufacturing index from the Philadelphia Fed. That is expected at -1.5, up from the prior -4. Other than that, the docket is pretty much empty. Eurozone consumer confidence at 3, that will be negative. It is always negative. It has always been negative since the inception of the Eurozone. Of course, the Fed's pre and slightly post-meeting blackout period does come to an end today, so do bear in mind that we could have some FOMC members popping up on newswires as the day progresses. And in fact, the Fed's daily will be giving remarks at 6 o'clock in the evening London time tomorrow, if people don't have anything better to do with their Saturday nights. And last but by no means least from me, of course, do be aware that there is a huge potential for gapping risk when markets reopen on Sunday night / Monday morning, depending on how geopolitical events evolve over the weekend. And sort of along similar lines, there is also the potential for folk to be squaring up their positions as we move towards the back end of the day today. Certainly can't imagine there'll be many market participants out there seeking to be short crude over the weekend. And from me this morning and for this week, that is all for the time being.
Wonderful, wonderful. Just a bit of AI news. I've just seen our friend Liam has just posted that Howard Marks has actually wrote his letter Oak Tree Capital's uh investor
Memo.
note. Memo with Perplexity. So that's a sign of the times. So
Hmm.
maybe Perplexity's won the race if Howard Marks is using it.
To
But
be
anyway,
fair, speaking of AI, that Brad Jacobs looks like AI drew him, to be honest.
well, this is what it literally is like looking in the future.
It
Um,
really
this
is.
this is what you've got to look forward to.
I'm gonna go and cry at my desk now.
Well, I apologise for that. But Michael, thank you so much for today and just the week as a whole. Listeners, thank you as always for listening in. Whatever you're doing today, keep it tight, stay safe, have a fantastic weekend. Whatever you're doing, be good, be careful. If you can't be careful, buy a pram. And we'll see you all Monday. Much love.
Indeed. Bye for now.